For LBC, I'm Lisa Aziz.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Well, good evening, and thank you very much for joining me again. And another exciting evening in British politics. We've got developments in the Tory leadership with declarations of interest, and we've got the collapse of the talks between the Labour Party and the Conservative Party over Brexit. And the question for tonight is, did you want these cross-party talks to succeed, or did you think they were a desperate, old-style political stitch-up, trying to ignore what voters had said and doing it in darkened rooms, or rooms that would in the old days have been smoke-filled but are now healthy and clean and don't have any smoke in them, but nonetheless still come to pretty grubby decisions? You may guess from the way I'm phrasing this that I think it was the latter. I think the idea that you have a referendum and 17.4 million people vote to leave the European Union, and then you have the two main parties, both of whom have just had a drubbing in local elections, decide that the best way forward is to say, we know best, let's ignore the electorate, let's rub our hands together and do something that nobody much likes and stitch it up against the British people, was a pretty dreadful approach. So that's my view of it. We've had what Jeremy Corbyn had to say earlier on in the day when responding to the collapse of the talks.
These talks have now reached what I believe to be a natural conclusion. The Prime Minister has announced the date she's leaving. There have been increasing noises off stage by Conservative cabinet ministers and others who don't agree with much of the talks or any of the discussion we're holding, so we are concluding the talks. The government has not moved its position fundamentally. There are fundamental disagreements. We want to have a customs arrangement with the European Union that protects jobs and trade, and we want to have a dynamic relationship on rights. We've put those views very strongly to the government, and the withdrawal agreement bill will be brought forward. I don't know what the contents of that bill will be. We haven't seen it.
Now, one of the talks didn't succeed on that basis, but what did Mrs May have to say in response?
There have been areas where we have been able to find common ground, but other issues have proved to be more difficult. And in particular, we haven't been able to overcome the fact that there isn't a common position in Labour about whether they want to deliver Brexit or hold a second referendum which could reverse it. Now, so when we come to bring the legislation forward, we will think carefully about what we've had with these talks, the outcome of these talks. We'll also consider whether we have some votes to see if the ideas that have come through command a majority in the House of Commons.
So Mrs May thinks that it was all Jeremy Corbyn's fault because he didn't know what he wanted to do in the first place. But what was she doing talking to him in the first place? He's a known Marxist on the hard left of the Labour Party. The Labour Party is deeply split over Brexit. But talking to him was giving credibility to somebody who wishes to overthrow the state as we know it. It seemed to be a great mistake. And it seemed to be moving away from the referendum, which was so clear. People voted to leave. They didn't vote for a stitch-up. But I'm looking forward to your calls. I want calls from people who agree with me, people who disagree with me. Let's have a good discussion about this. And I'm going to go first of all to David, a new caller in Twickenham. David, what are your thoughts?
Oh, thank you very much for taking my call. I'd just like to say I think it's a great shame that people didn't listen to you on your views on a no-deal Brexit. I'm wholeheartedly behind you and agree with everything you say on the situation. You're talking about cross-party talks. What I'd like to know is if the Brexit Party do well in the EU referendum and they field enough candidates in the next general election, could you foresee the Tory party going into coalition with the Brexit Party if it meant that Britain would get a no-deal Brexit?
Well, we've got to be careful about talking about the European elections for regulatory reasons.
Okay.
But in future, what happens is, I think, going to be very interesting. It seems to me that we have to leave the European Union. That was the demand of voters in the referendum, and it's been reiterated in other votes. And that if the Conservative Party doesn't deliver that, then come the next general election, the Conservative Party will lose a lot of support. And the structure of politics is changing, that people are fed up with business as usual politics, where the two main parties stitch things up. They want politicians who deliver on what they say. But you're pleased the cross-party talks have failed because you think no deal's a better option?
I don't think they were ever going to work in the first place. I think it was a bit of opportunism on the part of Jeremy Corbyn, to be honest with you. I don't want a Marxist leader. I don't want a Marxist government. I'm a one nation supporting, monarchist supporting Conservative. But having said that, I am swaying against the Conservative Party currently, and in the next general election, if things don't get sorted out, I'm going to have to vote Brexit Party. It should they field a candidate in my area. Well, unfortunately, I'm represented by Vince Cable at the moment. So
I know, because you're calling from Twickenham.
Get my vote.
No, I think you make such a valid point. If the Tory party doesn't deliver Brexit, we will lose our voters in droves. But David, thank you very much for calling. My next call is also called David, so tonight is the night of Davids, calling from Esher. David, hello, good evening.
Hello, Mr. Rees-Mogg, nice to talk to you.
Oh, thank you for calling.
It's not a question, it's my observation on it, is that has anybody ever watched an edition of Question Time or Daily Politics or Prime Minister's Questions? Whenever a Labour or a Conservative person is against each other, it always ends in a slanging match. So it's obvious that the meeting between Theresa May and Jeremy Corbyn was never going to work because they're the opposition. And they're called the opposition because they oppose everything the government says. It just never works.
Well, that's absolutely right. Disraeli said the job of the opposition is to oppose, and throughout our history, that's how it works.
Yeah.
And it's always a sign of desperation, isn't it, David, when the government goes to the opposition and says, can you dig me out of a hole? The answer is usually no.
Questions, they're slagging each other off again. It's just...
Yeah.
And it was a waste of time in the first place.
And isn't the whole point of an election is that you have one side that wins, that will implement what it has promised, and the other side that has lost, and that you don't want the two parties to get together to do something nobody voted for?
Exactly. I totally agree. It's a government problem. It's not really a Westminster problem. Yes, they can all vote on it, but of course if a government has a reasonable majority, the chances are they're going to get their ideas through. But and this is the way it works. But to expect the opposition to just agree with what you're going to say, particularly in this instance where Theresa May has abysmally failed, I think it was just a waste of time in the first place.
And also the Labour Party is just as divided as the Conservative Party, whether they want
absolutely.
another referendum and whether they represent Leave seats or Remain seats. David, thank you so much for your wisdom this evening. I'm going to go to Nigel, and you call in Marylebone. Nigel, hello.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask, how are the two parts of the Conservative Party going to reconcile their differences? Because you're talking about Conservative and Labour, although Winston Churchill managed to do it. The Second World War, when you had a real crisis, not you personally, we all had, they did talk to each other. And it was then the Conservative Party, pre the Second World War, that wouldn't talk to each other. And Churchill had to go to the nation then. So in a real time of real crisis, are you guys going to get together and talk to each other? The Conservative Party?
Well, we did. I was involved, as you may remember, in the Malthouse Compromise, where Nicky Morgan, Kit Malthouse, Robert Buckland, Steve Baker and others were involved in discussions about how we could find a way through and a compromise. That didn't work because...
You didn't, did you?
We agreed a compromise.
You didn't. Are you men or are you boys?
Well, we did agree a compromise, but the Prime Minister then wouldn't do it. She wouldn't.
So you didn't agree then? So you didn't manage to do it?
Well, I'm not the Prime Minister. I can't direct the negotiations.
But you're not the Prime
Minister,
and you never will be.
No, I'm not.
After this crisis, you never will be, will you?
No, I'm not trying to be, so that doesn't really arise.
Well, in your will, just as well, because I don't think there's a good chance that none of you will be.
But this isn't really the question today. The question today is, do you want these cross-party talks to succeed?
You're looking objectively. What about what's happening to your two parties? You're two different parties, and that's why the country's in such a mess.
Well, I think it's quite clear from the opinion polls at the moment that the Tory party's lost 75% of its voters to the Brexit party, and if the Tory party doesn't win back its Brexit voters, we're in real trouble. Nigel, thank you for calling. I'm going to go to Anthony, and you call in Exeter just before we go to the news. Anthony, can you give your views quickly?
Hello. It was more by way of a question for you, because with these talks, they seem to not succeeded, and it seems therefore that Theresa May reconfigure something to present before the Parliament. If the Parliament were to accept what she proposed, then would a new Conservative Prime Minister, taking Boris as an example, not 16th necessarily, would they be able to undo any of that?
That's a really good question, and I think that's part of Jeremy Corbyn's reason for leaving the talks, that he thought that a new Tory leader would not feel bound by what Mrs May had agreed. If, of course, it's passed by Parliament, that's a different matter. Thank you for your brilliant question. You're listening to Jacob Rees-Mogg on LBC. It is 6:15 and time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
6 weeks of Brexit talks between Labour and the government have broken up without agreement, with Jeremy Corbyn saying discussions had gone as far as they could. A right-wing terrorist has given a Nazi salute in court after being jailed for at least 20 years for planning to kill his local MP. A British transport officer has told an Old Bailey inquest 3 of the London Bridge terrorists set upon him like a wolf pack. LBC Weather, heavy rain moving into eastern England and Scotland through tonight. The odd shower elsewhere, a low of 8 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. There are queues on the M25 clockwise. A lane's closed at junction 29 for Romford because of an accident. It's taking over an hour to get through from junction 27 for the M11. On the M1 northbound, a lane stays closed at junction 11 for Luton because of an accident. So there are queues from junction 9 for Redbourne. There are severe delays on the A13 out of town after a police investigation at the Beckton roundabout earlier on. It's slow in Herne Hill. Dulwich Road is partly blocked both ways because of an investigation near Brockwell Lido. On the A40 Western Avenue, there are queues out of town after an accident before the Hanger Lane Gyratory earlier. And there's no Woolwich Ferry for the rest of the day because of a strike.
LBC.
Discover the multi-award-winning Peugeot SUV range. From the compact and stylish 2008, previously voted best small SUV, to the technologically advanced 3008 with over 60 awards, or the ultra-flexible 7-seat 5008. What car's best large SUV for the second year running? Order your award-winning Peugeot SUV today and indulge in a luxury overnight stay for 2 in a top UK hotel. T's and C's apply. Visit Peugeot.co.uk for details.
This is LBC.
1 in 2 people believe they should check their work email on holiday. 1 in 3 believe it's okay to eat a colleague's lunch. And 1 in 14 believe it's okay to steal loo roll from work. People believe all sorts of strange things. Some people believe that insurance companies try to avoid paying claims. But last year, Zurich paid 99% of insurance claims made by their UK customers. Zurich, an insurance company you can believe in. To find out more, visit zurich.co.uk/99.
Find a fresh new look in the mid-season sale at Oak Furnitureland. It's all delivered free, but it ends Sunday. At a store near you.
Hey, Bob, beer? Yeah, sure. I'll have a slow brewed, cask aged, triple hopped IPA, handcrafted by artisanal malt.
Some people think they're so special. But with the daily jackpot at Paddy Power Games, an average jackpot of £14,000 is guaranteed to be won by 10 p.m. every single day. So don't think you're special if you win it.
Served in a frosted glass with a handle. Right, we've got canned lager or cider.
Paddy Power Games. Jackpots must be awarded daily and vary from day to day. Jackpot is shared with other operators. Available on selected games. T's and C's at paddypower.com. 18+. BeGambleAware.org.
Experience the thrill and excitement of a cup final at the home of cricket. The Royal London One Day Cup Final takes place at Lord's on Saturday the 25th of May.
Way leg side, gone! Amazing scene.
Tickets are available from just £25. History is made at Lord's. Tickets on sale now.
Alexa, who is the best English rugby player of all time?
Good question. My favourite is Johnny Wilkinson.
Really? Oh, nice one. Alexa, who is the greatest rugby player of all time?
My favourite is definitely Sergio Perez.
Oh.
Take out Vitality Health Insurance today and we'll give you an Amazon Echo Dot, like Johnny here. You also get an Amazon Smart Plug. And to find your inner athlete, enable the Alexa Vitality skill for fitness and nutrition tips. To get your Amazon bundle today, just search Vitality Health. Vitality. Positively different. New member offer available on certain Vitality plans until 30th of June 2019. Minimum monthly premiums, terms and conditions apply.
Jacob Rees here on LBC. Andrew Castle, every Saturday and Sunday morning from 7.
We are ridiculous now online, isn't it? Everybody always complains about what has been said online. People are hounded offline. People get death threats online. Look, I'll tell you what, there is a solution to that, which is don't go online.
Leading Britain's conversation. Andrew Castle on LBC.
Welcome back. This is Jacob Rees-Mogg. I can't help commenting on the news story about Rosie Cooper. We'll get back to the main question today, because that's been such a horrible story, and Rosie is a wonderful member of Parliament. She's a Labour member, but one of the most decent, honest, considerate people you could hope to meet, and that she had some neo-Nazi who wanted to kill her has been a disgrace to politics, and I'm glad he's got a long sentence, and I'm glad that this chapter has come to an end, and admire hugely the courage with which Rosie has coped with this. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about tonight. What we're talking about is the cross-party talks and whether you wanted them to succeed or not, and I'm going to Majda, a new caller in Ealing. Hello, good evening.
Hi there.
What's your view on the talks?
I think it was it was damned to fail, because it didn't appeal to both sides of the argument. The Labour base weren't going to be happy with anything that came out with it, and so were the Conservative side. I mean, Labour wanted to soften Brexit to the point where it's not recognisable anymore, and people that want a hard Brexit, like myself, wouldn't be happy with anything that came out of that talk. So I think it was pretty obvious that it's going to fail from the beginning.
And which side are you on? Are you a Labour supporter and therefore you felt Labour shouldn't be involved, or where do you come on the political spectrum?
I would definitely be on the right, sort of libertarian. So yeah, I'm a Conservative. I wanted a hard Brexit, sort of a clean break, so we can get on to the more important stuff like freedom of speech and certain rights that we don't really respect in this country.
Oh, that's a very good question. We must do a show on freedom of speech one day coming up. But the talks have failed, they've gone, and you think that was inevitable. There was never really a chance because there was too big a difference between the two sides.
Definitely.
Excellent. Thank you for your view. Thank you for being a new caller. I hope you'll come back to us in future weeks. I'm now going to go to Michael in Loughton. Michael, hello. What are your views on those talks?
Well, I don't think they were ever going to go anywhere at all. What I find absolutely staggering is the fact that if you watch people like McDonnell on Peston or Andrew Marr, they are desperate, in my opinion, to look statesmanlike, considered in their views, despite their political leanings, and by inviting them to the cross-party talks, one's given them that opportunity. So without having to espouse their particularly strong views, they come out of this simply saying the talks have broken down.
Michael, so I think you make such a good point that simply by inviting them in for talks, they were given credibility, and so Theresa May had the effect of giving credibility to hardline Marxists.
Absolutely, and I don't think the talks were ever going to go anywhere at all. It's given them the publicity to demonstrate that they are not, as I say, on the face of it, as extreme as some people would suggest they are. There was another point I wanted to make, if I may, very briefly.
Of course, yes.
And that was one thing that I don't hear talked about with regard to a second referendum, is that the 3 years down the line, if it were ever to happen, the demographic of the population entitled to vote is radically different. One's never talking about a referendum where only those that voted last time are allowed to vote again, and therefore the result could be wildly different, actually, to that which it was before in terms of how close it was. I don't hear that talked about much.
Well, no, but certainly the people who are allowed to vote are the ones eligible on the day. But it's an interesting thought. Thank you, Michael, for calling. I'm going to go to Rudy in Exeter. Rudy, your thoughts on the talks. You pleased they failed?
Yes, I am pleased they failed because, you know, basically it was reversing Brexit because they wanted us to stay in the customs union. They wanted to continue free movement of people, you know, possibly in the single market. So it's just the same as staying in. It wasn't what we voted for. And I really respect you, Jacob, but what I'd like to say is, right, how I felt as someone who voted to leave, is that all this message that has been sent to us from Westminster is that, you know, we allow you to vote, but we don't care what you say. We're going to do what we want anyway. And I think that's a message that's been sent out that's really dangerous. Whether you voted to leave or remain, that's a very dangerous message because it affects all of us. Do you see what I mean?
Oh, Rudy, not only do I see what you mean, I agree with you. I think that the contempt for voters that we have seen is really shocking. Parliament has set its face against the people, and we had the Cooper-Letwin stitch-up to try and stop Brexit taking place on the 29th of March. And that was from people who said they would accept the result, and that people have said one thing and they've done another, and that destroys trust in politics and has made voters feel that they're being taken for a ride. So I think you're spot on.
Which sort of brings me on to my next bit, Jacob, really, which because I said, I really respect you, and this doesn't apply to you, and I know it's not all, right? But with regards to someone replacing Mrs. May and the Conservatives, I think the damage is too late, because it doesn't matter who you have as a leader, you're always going to be against the other people in Westminster that are going to try and thwart Brexit.
I think the voters will win in the end. I'm more confident than you are, and I think that people are soon going to realise, as they see how votes are cast across the country, that the demand of the British people for what they voted for to take place is very strong, and if the Conservatives don't deliver that, then we will go the way of all flesh. So I'm not...
one thing I just want to say, one more thing, and it's really important to me, Jacob, because I supported the Tory party for many years, right?
Yes.
And no one has asked this question. Theresa May says that she would leave once her deal went through. Why should that make any difference? Is it because she's got a hidden agenda of something else after her deal would go through with the European Union? Why should it matter whether she leaves, whether a deal goes through or not? I don't understand that.
I think the news has been overtaken by the news yesterday, so I think Theresa May's time in office is drawing gently to a close and doesn't have an enormously long time to run. But we will see, and we can discuss this again in future weeks. But really, thank you for calling. I'm going to go to Samuel, a new caller in Derby, to find out his views. Did you want these talks to reach a compromise?
Well, I don't think that we're going to reach a compromise, really. I think these talks are the culmination of the last probably 20 years of disintegration of the Conservative Party and the Labour Party as well, for that matter, becoming essentially the same party. I mean,
I know what you mean.
The new Labour Conservative Party is a shambles, really. Well,
I think it's gone because voters don't like it, and Labour's gone off to a Corbyn party, and that the Conservatives need to stand up and be counted as a Brexit party and put forward what they really believe in, rather than being a mini-me Blairite party, don't they?
Well, the members of Parliament for the Labour Party are not Corbynite radicalists as he is. They are still the same Blairite lot that we've had since 1997. It's the Conservative Party that have, under, obviously, David Cameron, who have become Labour light or Labour heavy, whichever way you prefer to look at it. Broadchurch and all that gumption, but when are the Conservative Party actually going to become a proper Conservative Party? Parliament works on the basis of adversarial combat, as it were, and what the policies that we're seeing from the Conservative Party and whatnot are just... It wouldn't surprise me if something did come out of the talks. It's the meme of the two Spider-Mans pointing at each other. I mean, that's essentially where we are, I think, in Parliament at the minute.
Well, I think that's a very interesting view. Thank you very much for calling. I'm going to go to Steve in Southport. Steve, did you want the talks to succeed? I can hear you loud and clear, yes.
Okay, smashing, thanks. The talks never had any chance of working, Jacob, because his position is to bring her down. And she's been the biggest waste of time ever. All she's done for the last 3 years is waste everyone's time. And everyone else has just been sitting there, good Brexiteers like yourself and Dr. Fox, etc., Boris, just watching her. She's just the biggest waste of time ever. I just don't understand how she got the job in the first place. I think she was an establishment patsy put there to take the hit of not delivering Brexit. And that's exactly what she's done, not deliver Brexit. The most we're ever going to get out of it is Bremain. That's if she stays. There's a new word, Bremain. But she's never had any intentions of delivering Brexit.
Well, one of my texts agrees with you. Dee in Southend says, "Hey Jacob, Mrs May's never changed her stance on her deal and so will never change for Labour." And you basically agree with that, don't you, Steve?
100%. I just don't know how she ever became Prime Minister and how everyone's just been looking at her for the last 3 years, just messing everyone around. It's just ridiculous.
Well, it hasn't been a great
Yes,
success, has it?
Boxing.
It's all been rather depressing if you're a Conservative. Things have gone pretty poorly, and we haven't got the Brexit. And how many times did the Prime Minister say we'd leave on the 29th of March? Was it over 100? Seemed to think it
too many
was.
times.
Yeah.
Everything she says, I expect the opposite to happen. I don't even believe she'll leave because she says she's going to believe. I don't think she will leave just because she said she's going to leave. Everything she says, I expect the opposite to happen. That's my take on Theresa now 3 years later. I'm sorry, I can't help it,
Thank you so much for your call. We've had text in saying much the same. Gillian in Darlington says Mrs May has been totally fixated on her dreadful deal. And this isn't helping the Conservative Party. We've had somebody say, a lifelong Conservative voter, the party is finished. Please defect to the Brexit Party. I'm not going to do that either. They've got one Rees-Mogg. They don't want to be greedy and have lots of us. And somebody said we're going round in circles. Well, the conversation at least continues, and it's very much a conversation on Brexit. And the view is that the deal was always bound to fail. If anyone's there who disagrees, please give me a call after the news headlines, because it's 6:30 and time for those with Lisa Aziz.
Jeremy Corbyn says the prospect of a change in Tory leadership meant Labour's Brexit talks with the government became ever more unstable, while Theresa May is blaming the collapse of discussions on splits in the opposition over whether to hold a second referendum and differences over a customs arrangement. A neo-Nazi has given a Nazi salute in court after being jailed for life for planning to kill his local MP, Rosie Cooper. 23-year-old Jack Renshaw from Skelmersdale, who also threatened to murder a police officer, will serve at least 20 years. The publication of the Grenfell Tower inquiry's first report has now been delayed until at least October because of its complexity. Participants, including survivors and those who lost relatives in the fire, were expecting its release in the spring. 72 people died in the disaster in June 2017. Lbc Weather, heavy rain moving into eastern England and Scotland through tonight. Cloudy with the odd shower elsewhere, a low of 8 degrees.
This is LBC.
It's hard to put your finger on what makes a Mini. The iconic design? Unique handling? But what really makes you smile is just its, well, sheer mininess. Get your Mini 3-door Hatch 1 Classic with LED lights and 6.5-inch infotainment screen for only $199 per month. Search Mini offers to find out more. Who's in? Mini UK is a credit broker. £2,000 initial rental. 48-month hire agreement from Mini Financial Services. Subject to status and availability. For new vehicles ordered by 30th June 2019 and registered by 30th September 2019 UK only. Guarantees may be required. Mileage and other conditions apply when you return the vehicle. T's and C's apply.
Just had one of the best Uber rides ever with this guy. Went out of his way showing me all the sights of London. Literally the best. Hashtag superstar service. That was a tweet from Hugh Roberts. To all the drivers changing the way the world moves, we couldn't have said it better. Uber. Where to?
The biggest cat in the world was called Stewie. He measured over 4 feet long. Meow. For a tabby, that's big. But it's not Euromillions big. Sorry, Stewie. This Friday, it's a gigantic £31 million jackpot. Euromillions. Amazing starts here.
Estimated jackpot rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Reunite with thousands of free kids' places when you book a TUI holiday now. With great offers on destinations from Mallorca to Mykonos. Book online or visit your local TUI store. We cross the T's, dot the I's and put you in the middle. TUI. Discover your smile. Atoll protected. Free kids' places subject to limited availability on selected holidays for a limited time. 1 free child place per 2 full paying adults. Booking T's and C's apply. See website for details.
Right now at Vodafone, enjoy 4 times more data on the brilliant iPhone XR and other pay monthly phones. Get more tunes pumping, get more FaceTimes rolling, get more apps apping, more maps mapping, more emojis emojiing, and more box set binging in stunning HD.
That's 4 times more data with 60 gig for the price of 15 on a range of pay monthly phones, including the brilliant iPhone XR. The future's exciting. Ready? Vodafone. For terms and exclusions, see vodafone.co.uk.
When you're out on the road, you need to know you can trust your brakes to keep you safe. If something doesn't feel right, it's best to get it checked. At QuickFit, we'll do a free check to make sure your brakes are working properly. And if not, we'll get them sorted. Just book online or visit your local QuickFit today and drive away happy.
Have you discovered Karcher's most advanced pressure washers? With Karcher's Full Control Plus technology, you can select the perfect setting for every cleaning task with just a touch of a button. What's more, until the 31st of May, you can claim up to £50 cashback on our Full Control Plus pressure washers. Visit your local B&Q, Screwfix or Wickes and get yours today. Terms and conditions apply. Visit karcher.co.uk to find out more.
Jacob Rees-Mogg on LBC.
Well, welcome back. We've been discussing today whether or not you wanted the cross-party talks between the Labour Party and the Conservative Party to succeed, and mostly people didn't. So if anyone takes another view, you're very welcome to call in. The other main item of interest on today's news in the political field has been the leadership race in the Tory party. Mrs May has now set a date for her departure, or at least given a strong indication. And Boris Johnson has indicated that he's intending to stand. And there's a poll in the Times that's online this afternoon showing that Boris is miles ahead of any other leader in securing the Conservative Party vote, getting votes back for the Tories, and in making us electable again. He's the first choice overwhelmingly against all the other candidates. So it's very interesting that as soon as his name formally enters the rankings, his popularity surges again. And he is, of course, an enormously charismatic figure who was able to win elections in London, essentially Labour City, twice as mayor. And people he's great fun, and he's also somebody who's very determined and principled. So that's the other news. But setting the date by Theresa May that led to this also potentially may have sabotaged the deal, because one of the things that Jeremy Corbyn said was that he couldn't come to an agreement because he wasn't sure that it would be implemented by a new leader, that a new leader might take a different view from Theresa May. So that's the background. We're going to go to Paul in Barking. Paul, your thoughts on the prospects of these talks and what you thought of them in the first place?
Hello, Jacob Evans here. Thanks for taking me call.
Not at all.
I'm delighted the talks have fallen, but the thing is, Jacob, that it wasn't Brexit to start with, and with Labour they wanted to attach onto a customs union and they wanted a confirmatory vote on top of that. It was not Brexit to start with. They were making it even worse. These talks are never going to happen. Your Prime Minister, your leader, is baffling, Jacob. I can't understand where she's coming from. And what's happened over the years, what's happened since the 2007 election, Jacob, is your colleagues in your own party, people like Dominic Grieve and your opposition with Yvette Cooper, they've gone back to Parliament, got massive majorities of 15 and 20,000 majorities, and got arrogant and they've shown contempt towards the British people, that they know better than the actual electorate. That's right. And what has happened here, Jacob, is you believe you've got bounce back ability, but you're in problems this time because the trust is totally gone with the Tory party. We don't believe you anymore. And if the stories are true, Jacob, where they're trying to do a Boris Johnson Amber Rudd, another hardcore Remainer, to try and basically stitch up something else, another Remainer in government, it's not going to work. It just ain't going to work, Jacob.
Paul, I think you're making a really important point, because one of the things I think we need to realise is that politics as usual has changed. It's why a stitch-up between Labour and the Conservatives over Brexit wasn't going to work, wasn't going to wash with voters. Your point on safe seats is very interesting, because in the local elections, councillors sitting on very, very safe seats apparently lost because voters just wanted a new party, a new direction, and that the idea that there are safe seats is a mistake. And likewise, it's trying to stitch things up between an arch Leaver and an arch Remainer and presenting a sort of dream ticket, I think is yesterday's politics rather than today's politics. That we're going to need, aren't we, somebody who takes us out of the European Union, says to the EU, basically, you can have Malthouse too, or we leave without a deal.
And Jacob, you see with the Liberal Democrats, it's a perfect example where they promised tuition fees, and it's taken like 2 decades. They've been wiped out all their seats. This is the problem where we don't trust them, because you had prominent Remainers such as David Davis and you had Dominic Raab in positions where it was Brexit secretaries, and behind the scenes they had no power whatsoever. They were just sitting there basically had no power, and you had people like Ollie Robbins working behind the scenes, actually the proper Brexit secretary. And this is the question I ask you, Jacob. I know you voted for the deal the third time. You've said you wanted to get Brexit over the line. You've got Nigel Evans has said the same. You've got Dominic Raab has said the same. I'm pleading with you, Jacob, to vote this thing down a fourth time. You know yourself in your heart of hearts, this is not Brexit. This deal she brings back in the beginning of June is not Brexit, Jacob.
I've never liked Mrs May's deal. I don't like the backstop. I don't like the superiority of...
We need a reset. We need a reset with a new leader and start these talks again. We cannot get this deal to go through because it's not Brexit.
I think your advice is loud and clear, and I think you are pushing in the right direction. Paul, thank you very much. I'm going to go to Evan in Slough to find out his view on the deal.
Hi, Jacob.
Hello.
Just by the way, Boris is a soft Brexiter. I think democracy would be well served if Ms May and Corbyn agreed to confirmatory vote. Sadly, I don't think.
Thank you. You're the first person to say that. So you think that
No
would have been a
problem.
good thing?
I think it would be if they agreed to a confirmatory vote, and I think democracy well served. But I don't think either party is sincere. However, I also think the word "stitch up," "will of the people," "betrayal" is unhelpful, and I'll say why. Because the issue is how we leave the EU at the moment, and Remain voters like me get a voice on how we leave. We get a right to that. Leave voters also have a right to hold people to promises to account. So as an MP, you recognise that I, as a Remain voter, do have a voice on how we leave. You do agree with that, do you not?
Of course you have a voice, and you can vote as you do in Slough for a Member of Parliament who will represent you in the way you like.
In terms of the options of how we leave and the actual options on the table that are deliverable, I, as a Remain voter, and other people out there get a voice, a democratic right to say how we leave. As long as you recognise that's fine, because at the moment people are throwing around all we seem to be discussing over and over again is will of the people, and that's the problem is how we leave at the moment, not whether we leave or whatever. It's what realistic options are available, and do they deliver on the promises? So I don't like wasting so much time on constantly repeating that particular point.
I don't agree with everything.
I want to try and further discussion.
Let me just try and answer your point, because I don't agree with everything you're saying. But I do think you're entitled to your voice and to your view, and you're entitled, as you're doing on the radio now, to put that point across. I'm against a second referendum. I think that is basically an attempt to stop leaving. And I think I wish you were right.
This is about leaving. This is about how we leave. There's no
that was what I was about to
now.
say. I don't think that's true, unfortunately. I think a lot of people in Parliament are still trying to stop us leaving, and therefore it's not about leaving. It's about whether we leave in the first place.
A method of leaving that delivers on the promises that were made. You can't just say anything and not expect to deliver on it. Those people making promises like Farage about, we're going to get this and all get that, have to be held to account. You just can't make random promises.
We can leave on the 31st of October with no deal, keep the £39 billion, make our own laws.
And keeping the £39 billion would actually be more costly to the UK economy than actually keeping our reputation and the potential loss, the delay in WTO agreements, all the these kind of comments don't help. But what I'm trying to say is, can we actually continue the debate? So, for example, can I ask you questions like, for example, if we do get a deal with the US, so let's assume we do leave on WTO and we get a deal with the US, will the US constrain us with trade deals with China and India? Because from what it looks like, the US is going to seriously constrain us. It's not going to allow us to be a backdoor into the US.
Well, no, the US relationship with China is particularly tricky at the moment, but the US imposing tariffs on China will not have an effect on us. But there will be rules of origins in any
with China.
Well, there'll be rules. It won't affect how we trade with China, but
into the US
but
economy, are we? Trump's not going to appreciate that.
But it will affect goods from China to the US, and it will affect rules of origin, of course, because the US would not allow the UK to be used as a means of Chinese goods getting into the US. That's a very straightforward part of trade negotiations and rules.
That will affect what goods we send to the US will be significantly be affected by our trade deals with China. So we will not be able to sell goods into the US, potentially, that originated from China.
Well, that's true. We can't become a smuggling post for goods from China into the US. That's obviously true. And it would have an effect on rules of origin, but it wouldn't have any effect on goods that were manufactured in the UK, or indeed on services, which are a much bigger part of our trade with the US.
But services are not going to be agreed with the US. And I think services with the EU will be lost. But
I wouldn't be sure about that.
I don't think the agreement, I think you pointed out, the agreement that we're making with Europe, even Ms May's deal, doesn't include services.
No, Mrs May's deal doesn't include services because we haven't got on to the future relationship. Her Chequers deal didn't propose including services, but we're not at that stage. We're wandering a bit from the question, and I want to get in more callers, so I better go to Michael in Lakenheath. But thank you for calling. Michael, what are your thoughts on the cross-party talks?
Jacob, hi. Nice to speak with you. I just wanted to say that people like yourself being hypocritical about the Brexit debate, when it came down to holding the line, you voted with Theresa May, not the people. And Dominic Raab, when he was asked to vote with the people. The last second, he voted with Theresa May. So you're not looking after the people, you're looking after your own business interests.
I don't think that's fair. The reason I voted for Mrs May's deal is that I wanted us to leave on schedule, and she'd promised to go, and I wanted a new leader who would have changed things. I was never voting for her deal thinking that that was the final word, because it's a most unsatisfactory final word.
You didn't hold the line, Jacob. That's why this whole Conservative thing is over.
I don't think that's right. I think the reason for voting the way I did was so that we wouldn't be in the situation of a long extension. I was worried that a long extension opened the door to stopping Brexit altogether. That was definitely a risk, and a risk I was keen to avoid.
You've never been a military man, have you, Jacob?
I have never been a military man, no.
Okay, well, any military man will tell you hold the line at all costs.
Well, it's not true. Look at the Duke of Wellington and how he operated in the Peninsular War. He knew when to retreat and when to advance, and that was his great success. But thank you for your thoughts. We can't discuss the 1810s and up to Waterloo in 1815. Thank you for calling. You're listening to Jacob Rees-Mogg on LBC. It is 6:45 and time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
6 weeks of Brexit talks between Labour and the government have broken up today without agreement, with Jeremy Corbyn saying discussions had gone as far as they could. A right-wing terrorist has given a Nazi salute in court after being jailed for life for planning to kill his local West Lancashire MP. A man's been charged with murdering a 51-year-old pedestrian who was hit by a car in East London. LBC Weather: heavy rain moving into eastern England and Scotland overnight. The odd shower elsewhere, a low of 8 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. Delays continue on the M25 clockwise. A lane is closed at junction 29 for Romford because of an accident. It's taking around an hour to get through from junction 27 for the M11. On the M1 northbound, a lane stays closed at junction 11 for Luton because of an accident. So there are queues from junction 9 for Redbourne. The A10 Tottenham High Road is closed both ways between Bruce Grove and St Loy's Road because of an accident. So there are queues on the approach. On the A13, there are severe delays out of town to the Beckton roundabout after a police investigation earlier on. In Thamesmead, Central Way eastbound is blocked because of an accident at Twin Trumps Way. And there's no Woolwich Ferry for the rest of the day. That's because of a strike.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Andrew Pearce.
Health Secretary Matt Hancock joins me. I'll be asking why he's polling only 1% of his party members, and should children be compulsorily vaccinated.
Andrew Pearce on LBC.
Our house is too tall. Our house is a funny shape. The walls are too thick. If you're constantly making excuses for your weak Wi-Fi signal, get the new BT Complete Wi-Fi Guarantee. Clever Wi-Fi discs extend your smart hub signal to every room, whatever size and shape your house is. It's $39.99 a month on an 18-month contract with a $29.99 setup fee. BT customers can upgrade with BT Plus. BT, be there.
New customers, CPI increase starting 2020. $44.49 a month from month 19, up to 3 discs to guarantee Wi-Fi or £20 off your bill.
Get yourself in pole position with up to £1,000 extra off the list price of your new Renault car. Lap it up at the Renault sales event from 17th to 27th May. Search Renault offers today. New cars ordered 17th to 27th May and registered by 30th June. £1,000 Kadjar, Koleos, £500 on all other cars, excluding Traffic Passenger and Twizy. Selected vehicles while stocks last. Retail customers at participating dealers only.
Get in pole position and get up to £1,000 off the list price on your new Renault car at the Renault Retail Group sales event. Don't miss the action from the 17th to the 27th of May. Find your nearest dealer at renaultretail.co.uk and get up to £1,000 off your next Renault. Selected vehicles while stocks last, conditions apply.
Alexa, who is the greatest female athlete ever?
The jury's still out on that one.
Alexa, is Jessica Ennis-Hill the greatest female athlete?
Sorry, I'm not sure.
Come on, Alexa. Do you even like athletics?
I don't have a body.
Take out Vitality Health Insurance today and we'll give you an Amazon Echo Dot, like Jess here. You also get an Amazon Smart Plug. And to find your inner athlete, enable the Alexa Vitality skill for fitness and nutrition tips. To get your Amazon bundle today, just search Vitality Health. Vitality. Positively different. New member offer available on certain Vitality plans until 30th of June 2019. Minimum monthly premiums, terms and conditions apply.
Reunite with thousands of free kids' places when you book a TUI holiday now. With great offers on destinations from Mallorca to Mykonos. Book online or visit your local TUI store. We cross the T's, dot the I's and put you in the middle. TUI, discover your smile. Atoll protected. Free kids places subject to limited availability on selected holidays for a limited time. One free child place per 2 full paying adults. Booking T's and C's apply. See website for details.
It's hard to put your finger on what makes a Mini. The iconic design? Unique handling? But what really makes you smile is just its, well, sheer mininess. Get your Mini 3-door Hatch 1 Classic with LED lights and 6.5-inch infotainment screen for only $199 per month. Search Mini offers to find out more. Who's in? Mini UK is a credit broker. £2,000 initial rental. 48-month hire agreement from Mini Financial Services. Subject to status and availability. For new vehicles ordered by 30th June 2019 and registered by 30th September 2019 UK only. Guarantees may be required. Mileage and other conditions apply when you return the vehicle. T's and C's apply.
Do you or a loved one forget things or occasionally struggle to find the right words? At St Pancras Clinical Research, we're looking for people with mild cognitive impairment or Alzheimer's disease to take part in a drug study. Participants must be aged over 55 and have someone who can help them with the study. All volunteers will be paid for their time and reasonable expenses. To find out more, visit stpancrasclinicalresearch.com. That's stpancrasclinicalresearch.com.
Jacob Rees-Mogg on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Well, welcome back. We've been talking about the cross-party talks between Labour and the Conservatives, between the Marxist Jeremy Corbyn and the Tory Theresa May, which haven't got anywhere at all, and both sides are blaming each other. And most people seem to think that these talks were a bad idea in the first place. But we've got a new caller from East Antrim. Thomas, calling from Northern Ireland. What is your thought?
Good evening, Mr. Rees-Mogg. What an absolute pleasure to be able to speak to you tonight.
Well, it's a pleasure to hear from you. I visited Antrim earlier in the year and had a wonderful time. A beautiful place to come.
I hope you enjoyed it here.
Yeah, I did,
come back
hugely.
Again soon.
Well, I'd love to. Thank you.
Anyway, I think the fact that these talks have collapsed is great news. The very thought for me of Theresa May going in to negotiate with someone who sympathises with the IRA is sickening.
That must be very deeply felt in Northern Ireland, I would have thought, particularly amongst the unionist community.
There was a lot of people who were very unhappy with it, but in any terms, you don't know what Labour want. They're demanding single market, customs union, confirmatory vote, literally telling us we didn't know what we were voting for. I mean, I wasn't old enough to vote in the Brexit referendum, but I would be old enough to vote now, and I would be voting Leave, absolutely.
Oh, well, that's brilliant, because we always get told that young people are all in favour of the European Union, and you're clearly young, and you think it was right to vote to leave and would encourage us to leave.
Look, I'm not the only young person around here who would vote to leave, I tell you that.
Well, that's very reassuring, Thomas. Thank you very much for calling and for your wisdom this evening. I'm going to go Robbie in Colchester. What were your thoughts? Did you want the talks to succeed?
Hello, Jake. But no, I think, to be honest with you, they were a pantomime from the very beginning. I'll tell you why. When Theresa May first started negotiations 3 years ago, when we first voted to leave, it soon became apparent that she was, I thought, incompetent. However, as time has progressed, I'm beginning to think there's something much more deep-rooted. I'm beginning to think she's actually crooked. And I'll tell you why. You've just lost, 1,200 councillors in local elections? You're about to get absolutely destroyed at the European elections. And I speak as a 35-year Conservative voter, yeah? Mm-hmm. It's impossible that she does not know that she doesn't represent the will of the people. Yeah? So this is incompetence.
Can I just put in a word of defence for the Prime Minister, which may surprise you? I don't think she does. I don't think she does know that the British people don't want this. I think she really believes in her deal, and
that can't be the case. I mean, the deal's been voted down 3 times through Parliament already. It's about to get kicked out of 4th.
But I've
just lost 1,200 or more councillors, and everybody knows you're going to get demolished in this forthcoming election. Yeah?
Robbie, I know all of this, but I've been in meetings with the Prime Minister, and I get every impression she really believes her deal is Brexit and it's the best deal available, and she's mystified as to why people like me don't support it. So I think you're actually being unfair. I think she's wrong. I think
it's inconceivable, Jacob, that she's not unaware of the public opinion. Inconceivable. And if she is so unaware, then she's definitely unfit to rule. But the other thing that I wanted to mention was that we keep hearing this phrase, that deal wouldn't go through Parliament, or there isn't a will in Parliament for this deal or this other deal or another deal, yeah? Well, that's irrelevant, yeah? Remember the words of Margaret Thatcher, which was, the state as my servant, not my master.
Well,
you were given clear instructions.
You're quite right.
Clear instructions to leave. And she's spent 3 years desperately trying to look like she's leaving without leaving. Yeah,
and
for whatever
Parliament
reason, whether incompetence, duplicity, or whatever reason. Yeah, and this is why you've destroyed the trust of the average person in the street in British policy.
Well, I think what you're saying is spot on, and Parliament passed the law to leave anyway.
This is why we want to, the awful American expression, drain the swamp. But this is why I think you're going to see absolute demolition of the current parties as they stand. I mean, I would vote for a cat in a hat over an established politician at the moment, because they've just been, as I say, duplicitous, they've been condescending, they've been, I think, to be honest with you, lied is not a term I shy away from. They have lied to the public. This could have been delivered by a second-hand car dealer from Romford in an afternoon. Yeah?
OK, I'm going to cut you off there because I've got lots more callers to get in, but I think what you're saying has a lot of truth in it, a lot of sad truth in it. James in Gillingham in Kent, hello.
Good evening, Jacob.
Evening. What would you like to say?
First of all, how's the family?
Oh, they're flourishing, thank you. All very well. Thank you so much.
We have met each other before in the precincts of the Commons, so I'm sort of roughly known to you, and I always ask you about your family.
You do indeed, which is very kind of you, and thank you for calling. But what's your view on these cross-party talks?
Well, there was a kind of inevitability that they would not succeed because there's so much, divergent opinions. I mean, it's just a reflection of where the country is at the moment. There is so much division in there. And it seems to me that the only winner, the real winner of this whole Brexit debate is not leave or remain, it's hatred and intolerance. Now, I think we have to find a way, and I speak as a devout Christian gentleman, and I'm sure you would agree with me. You go to the Roman Catholic Church, you have Mass, and I'm sure you believe as well.
I do,
we have
yes.
to find a way of bringing people back together.
I think
we should not be stoking the fires of hatred and intolerance.
James, thank you. That's a really good point and well made. I'm going to go to Paul in Southgate. Paul, do you think these talks have been making good progress?
Well, hi, Jacob. I just want to thank you. I really do feel sorry for you. I'll be honest with you, because you've tried your best, but I think these talks were doomed to failure, weren't they? I think the only reason they took place is that they want to blame each other,
and which they've done, haven't they, in their statements today? They both said it was the other one's fault. Yes.
Unfortunately, the only way forward I can see for this thing now is to have a general election. And unfortunately, although where I live in Barnet. I've got Theresa Villiers, my MP.
Oh, she's wonderful. She's a great MP.
She is a great MP, but in fact, last election it was a swing seat.
Yes.
It was a swing seat, it was, and so I do feel sorry for the Conservative Party, but the thing is, I think the only way forward now, you're probably not going to like what I'm going to say, is to get this Brexit Party in the Parliament and get maybe 50, 60 seats in the Parliament so we can have a coalition with them and we can get this Brexit through.
Well, I think the Tory party needs to deliver Brexit before the general election. I think if we wait until the general election and we haven't left, we're in such trouble. And we need to leave now, probably without a deal if they won't accept Malthouse 2. But thank you for your great point. I'm going to go to Indy in Woodford, who I think is probably going to be our last caller this evening. Indy, what are your thoughts on these talks?
Hi, Jacob.
Hello.
I didn't think these talks were ever going to amount to anything, so I'm not surprised they're broken down. But I am a bit surprised. In terms of the actual what Labour want, I'm surprised that they didn't actually agree to them, because from what I understand, Theresa May's withdrawal agreement would have ended up in a permanent customs union because of the Irish backstop, which is what they're asking for anyway.
I think that's right. I think that's the odd thing about the breakdown in the talks, because the backstop's going to give them the customs union anyway, so they're getting what they wanted.
Yeah, so I think it was just a charade, and it was just a way. And they've played it quite well, actually, because it's made Theresa May look even weaker, which is probably
it's quite difficult.
But in any event, I think where do the Tories go from here? I think they've got a major problem, because the spotlight's been on them now for 3 years trying to deliver this, and I don't think a change in leader is going to fix the problem here, even if it's a Brexiteer. I think the problems in the Conservative Party, right down at the foundations.
But what happens once we've left? If we just leave on the 31st of March, doesn't that help?
On the 31st of October?
October, sorry, yeah.
I don't think that you'll be able to do it. I don't have any belief or any that you'll be capable of, to be able to actually achieve that. And even if you do, you're still going to be punished by the electorate because it's not going to look like you've done it in a managed way. It's going to look chaotic.
Well, I'm afraid time's up, but thank you for your slightly gloomy prognosis at the end. You've been listening to Jacob Rees-Mogg on LBC. Coming up at 10 tonight, it's Nick Abbott. But next, it's Andrew Pearce interviewing, among others, Matthew Hancock. Do give him my regards, Andrew.
I certainly will, Jacob, and thanks. And also coming up in the programme, we'll be getting the latest on the far-right terrorist